Okay, so I was saying that is a great thing. I making an assumption here that you haven't seen one of my presentations or my talks on Toolbox for Creativity before, because a fresh pair of eyes and ears are great for what I want to do today, which is I want to show how Toolbox for Creativity works, because on top of all the information that I have shared, on top of the information that is available on the Kickstarter, there are still some questions, and this, I guess, is normal because Toolbox for Creativity is a new approach to delivering training. My idea for doing this is I have been studying human behavior and, well, actually risk and change management as well, and game development or games as a form of education for over 5 years. And what I notice is that some things that have not changed pretty much for the past 60 years are in huge needs of change. Education, unfortunately, for the most part, is one of those things that haven't changed at all. I would say over 2,000 years. So we still have this process in which one person talks to the others, and the others sort of memorize, repeat, and eventually forgets, because the process of education is not that engaging. And I'm saying this for the most part because recently I was listening to a webcast by a great friend of mine, Victoria, and she mentioned that in the country where she lives, I can't really remember where it is, it's one of the Nordic countries in Europe, education is actually pretty much based on games, gamification, serious games, and other techniques. So I cannot really say that education hasn't changed at all for everyone, but I would say for the most part, it hasn't. So let me just move this a little bit over here, and I will show you. Hopefully you can see as well. There is a bit of light and reflection, but hopefully you can see us. So what we have is this product, which I call Toolbox for Creativity. And Toolbox for Creativity is not just the prototyping kit. And I will show you the prototyping kit here in a minute. And what happens is that because it's physical and it's something that we can touch and see, when people think about Toolbox for Creativity, they immediately think about the prototyping kit, but it's actually more than that. First, we have a framework for evaluation and implementation. The framework actually tells us how to use the tool, how to evaluate people, whether we are working online or offline, whether we are working, say, for example, collecting information, say an example is a risk identification workshop, or whether you are teaching something. Say, for example, you want to teach people communication skills, which then you have a series of learning outcomes that you want people to learn and master. So because the applications are many, the framework goes through all of them and explains the person delivering the training, let's say in this case you, the facilitator, how to do it. The framework is actually based on 3 main elements. And the first one is agile ways of working. We also have design thinking. And finally, we have game development as a source of constructing the workshop. So this game development part is heavily mentioned here, but all of this agile and design thinking are equally important. So let's say we'll start from the from the start. Let's say you have your training and you want to improve this training, you want to make it better, and you want to, say, for example, use my solution, which is Toolbox for Creativity. So what do? The first thing is to actually check the framework. So you need to read and to see which of the implementations that so far I suggest match the type of training that you want to deliver, because here it's important that you are clear about what is it that you want to do with the workshop. As I mentioned, do you want to collect information? Do you want to use it to identify risks or any other type of information? Or do you want it to actually teach or coach people into something very specific? Once you have that first thing done, so then you check the framework, you see the examples that I give there on how to use it. By the way, the framework, which is connected to the community of practice, there is also videos in there that tells you how to use, as a facilitator, Toolbox for Creativity. So all of this is connected. The second thing you do is, once you give a bit of thought onto how you want to use Toolbox for Creativity, let's say you have your own ideas, but you're not 100% sure, then you use as well some of the coaching and facilitating hours that I propose as part of the packages in Kickstarter. So when you back us up through Kickstarter and you select one of the package offers, this come with hours, and then you can call me, or sorry, arrange a time. I will call you. We can use Zoom or Microsoft Meetings or Teams. I can't remember the name. So all of those tools are okay. And you will share information with me beforehand. I will review what you have done, and I will propose then perhaps adjustments to how you can implement Toolbox for Creativity on your workshop or training. So I mentioned the videos, and I mentioned as well some of the information. For example, the framework is hosted in the Community of Practice, which is a website. So are the videos. But the Community of Practice is more than that. It's not just a repository for people or for me, let's say, to put stuff there and for you to download and use. The Community of Practice is actually a live community of practice in which you can see what other professionals have done with Toolbox for Creativity, perhaps get some ideas from there. Moreover, if your approach to, say, delivering training with Toolbox for Creativity is not, say, for example, showcase in the community practice, then you can post your idea, your proposed solution, how to do it, and the experts, the people that are present in the community of practice, will give you feedback. And this, you can also build it into your, and even you can do this before you book the hours, say, for example, to call me. You will have a better idea, and then we do the call, then you have your training, say, ready to go. The way you deliver the training, and here this arrow, I hope still showing in the camera. Let's just move this a little bit lower. This laptop is horrible, has the camera there close to the keyboard, and it's not great. But anyway, so then once you know how you're going to deliver the training, then you have the prototyping kit to help you deliver this. The way I suggest to you use it is one prototyping kit per 3 people. So it could be 2, could be 4. 1 is not great. 5 people is too many people for the prototyping kit. The ideal number is 3. So based on the number of participants that you have in the room, or the number of participants you expect to receive, then you need to plan having enough of the prototyping kits. And this guy here, it's a good thing that you cannot see it there. Let me see if I can do this. Because I was trying to draw a face of engagement, and I drew a face of somebody being scared. But anyway, so that's supposed to be somebody engaged. And the way this works is inside the Toolbox for Creativity, and let's just open it and see, there are some smaller boxes, and each box represents an iteration. And this connects to the agile ways of working. There is more than that, because the teams that are going to be working in your workshop, they're going to be self-managed and so let's say self-managed and self-organized. That's the other word. Self-managed and self-organized. They're going to work in iterations, and they need to deliver something at the end of each iteration. This something is a prototyping of a board game based on the main topics of your training. So this also needs to be defined, the main points of your training, and this is something that I help you build when we do all the information, when we do, the training session between you and me. Something that I will do after this is I will show you a real PowerPoint that I use with a client, which is using Toolbox for Creativity for a team building exercise. And with these clients, we are just at this stage. They reviewed the tool, they like it, they called me, and we had a conversation to see how to use it. So so inside Toolbox for Creativity, as I mentioned, there are some smaller boxes. This is a prototype of my prototyping kit. It's not the final product, so the boxes are a bit too small. The final one will be much better because the boxes will fit perfectly inside the box and everything will be super neat. But on the box number 1, what you get is actually pen and paper elements to create a paper prototype. People will have to deliver the first prototype of the game based on the idea of paper prototyping. This connects to design thinking and trying to identify as well what is it that you want to create. Once they develop the prototype, they need to show it to the other participants in the room. There is the opportunity to speak up and say they have to pitch the prototype. They need to explain why the game they are creating connects to the point of the training, and they need to receive feedback. I will show you in a minute as well what happens with all of this information, because the model that I propose captures as well this data, and it allows you to do something extra that, to the best of my knowledge, no tool out there in the market helps trainers to collect this data and do something with it. Yeah, so I was showing this guy here. So let me see. Yeah, so we have the engagement part. We have the money part, which is the part that, let's say, is beneficial for the person delivering training, because the more the people are engaged, the better feedback you're going to receive. And then, you know, hopefully you're going to get more clients asking you to deliver training based on Toolbox for Creativity. So that was iteration 1. People receive feedback. They need to move to iteration 2. And then the cycle repeats as iterations tend to do. So in here, then you are going to have different boxes, box number 2, number 3, and there is the option as well for number 4. Although I received feedback from a professional trainer recently saying that the maximum amount of iterations that perhaps the trainers can do before they get bored is 3 iterations. So that's something as well to consider. But on the next iteration, what happens is the game elements just become a little bit more, let's say, elaborate, because first we started working with pen and paper to deliver a paper prototype, although it's not 100% pen or paper, because what I do is I provide a whiteboard, sort of dry erase board, so it becomes a bit more, I would say, realistic. People then will feel that they are creating a game using something a little bit more game-like. And on iteration 2, then the elements just become a little bit more less abstract. So these are real elements that allow people to work to create board games. Sorry, I cannot show them so well on this thing, but actually on the video in Kickstarter, you can see the elements exactly as they would be. They will be, sorry, in the final products. So as I mentioned to you, what I want to do now is show the. Let me see. So this is a PowerPoint that I put together for a presentation, workshop that I'm helping a client facilitate. So let me just connect my PowerPoint thing. Yeah, okay, it works. So it is a team building exercise. And the idea, after they sent some information to me, this information was sent before the call, which is something I suggest as well to do with all the clients to save some time. And I decided to call this workshop, or this was a suggestion, Don't Fail Together. The idea is to get 2 teams that have been working together for about a year and a half, and because of COVID and other circumstances, have not been able to meet and work together face-to-face, and they are organizing an event in order to do this, and to improve communication and collaboration, remove silos, and all of these good things that hopefully come out of a good team building exercise. So I decided to call this Don't Fail Together. First, we have an icebreaker. Based on the type of training that they plan to deliver, I chose the icebreaker that became really popular because Jane McGonigal has a video on YouTube. Jane McGonigal is a designer of games for learning, education, and many other things. And she calls it, let me see if I remember well, because, oh yeah, the name is this, massively multiplayer thumb wrestling. So it's about wrestling with somebody else, but then you have a lot of people linking up. So you have like 3, 4, and then you wrestle with 2 hands, and everyone in the room is wrestling. And it's entertaining, it's engaging. It's a good way to get people that don't know each other up until this point, at least don't know each other face to face, to exchange some positive, I would say, energies and some positive, I don't know what to call it. But anyway, positive stuff, right? And as Jen McGonagall mentions there, this type of exercise brings joy, relief, surprise, and pride, but also increases curiosity, excitement, wonder, contentment, and creativity. And this is excellent because this will prime people for the rest of the activity. So based on the information my client gave me, they said that they have more or less 20 something people, 20, 22. I suggested separating them in 6 groups, and each of them will receive a box of Toolbox for Creativity. Again, the way we separate people is I suggest to do it randomly, and also to ensure that as much as possible, people from the 2 teams are working together, not cluster in the teams that they usually work with, because the idea of this exercise is to maximize this opportunity in order to share all this learning with people that before we hadn't met. Then we go to iteration 1, and in iteration 1, we are going to be using Toolbox for Creativity to build the prototype of a board game. Here on the top, you can see 3 questions. For example, I wrote to the client how to improve, how to avoid, ways of doing, but they still haven't decided exactly what is it that they want to do. So I put it open to them, and we need to do a further call to decide what exactly is it that we want to improve, avoid, or make sure that we understand well the ways of doing something. So I propose team cohesiveness, removing silos, team building activity, working together for a common goal. These are just general ideas, and now we need to refine this and move further. So we go to the stage, we go to iteration 1, they start working with the paper prototyping, and on top of all of these gaming activities that are already happening, which are going to improve the way this training works and the amount of information that we collect, I also use or suggested for this particular client to use some gamification techniques, like for example, a leaderboard, in order to keeping people engaged and to encourage them to, I would say, work a little bit harder while still enjoying the activity. This is an example of a previous workshop that I delivered, in which the feedback that is provided by the people by the teams when they are presenting their prototypes is collected. And this is essential because then we can use this information to filter it through some open source tools, open source and freely available tools. And this is the way it is for the moment. Although once we receive funding to do the full version of Toolbox for Creativity, these tools will be unique for Toolbox for Creativity, and they will be hosted in the community of practice. So you can go there and simply use these tools to generate your cloud words and to filter the information, and also collect some, or to arrive to some conclusions. And I will show you in a minute how this works. So then we collect this information, we move further, and we have, 1 second, something. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So thanks a million. And I will just continue the presentation because, as I told you, I'm going to put it on the LinkedIn. But I will just continue delivering this. So Kim, thanks a million for joining, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you. So then we collect this information. Perfect. So we collect this information and we can filter it, and we can apply some tools in order to derive some conclusions. That was only iteration 1. Then we have iteration 2. And in iteration 2, as I mentioned in the previous introduction or few minutes, we have separate boxes. The boxes contain different elements, but we repeat the iteration. We just go through the same process of iterating, presenting a prototype of a game that we are creating, using the feedback that we gather in order to improve it, and also giving feedback to other participants. So here we can see that the process of providing information and feedback repeats. There are some extra activities, and again, this is, I would say, apply gamification into this process. And here I suggest this to my clients to use, for example, a secret mission, or to select winners in different categories. And this connects to the leaderboard, which is instead of having one single leaderboard for the person or the team that is winning across all the areas, what we can do is break the areas, the leaderboard, into different areas, so at least different teams have the opportunity to reach for different goals and remain at the top of the leaderboards. We have iteration number 3. Remember, and we repeat this data collection and using the data in order to improve the prototype that we are working with. And in this case, remember, as I told you, a colleague of mine suggested keeping it to only 3 iterations, because he suggests that this is the limit where people will still remain engaged. We need to test this and see how it goes. In my previous examples and the way that I have tested Toolbox for Creativity, we have used 4 iterations. And the outcome, this is the part that is interesting. We have a group of people that attended a workshop that were fully engaged, and now they learned the learning outcomes that we had set up for them. On top of this, sorry, before we go on top of this part, remember, we have Toolbox for Creativity for different purposes. We can do it for learning something specific, but in the case of these clients that you can see here on the presentation, they are not really learning something in the classical sense. They are doing a team building activity in order to improve the ways they work. Of course, mind you, this team building activity can turn into, for example, a session or a material that actually finds out where processes are failing. So by identifying these failures, they are learning something. They are learning how to work better, but they're also producing information that can be used by the trainer to give feedback to the client, the person that is running paying for the whole session. And in this case that you see here on the screen, it is a team building exercise. People are going to be super engaged. People are going to feel more comfortable working together at the end of this. Also, the silos that are present at the moment, given the distance and the physical distance, but also the, I would say, psychological barrier of having never met face-to-face will disappear. On top of this, then we have the data. And this part is interesting because let me just stop this. Oh. Okay. So one of the main things behind the research that brought me to create Toolbox for Creativity is that when people are learning, when we are learning, especially through an engaging activity, we are displaying quite a lot of information. And so far, this information is wasted. When we run let's say, when we attend a workshop or a training, the information that is collected is our name. And if we attended the minimum amount of hours or sessions in order to consider that we attended this training, therefore we pass, therefore we receive, say, for example, a certificate. Unfortunately, that's the only data that is collected. And I'm talking here about corporate training and corporate learning and development. And what I suggest is with this data that we display when we are selecting a training, attending the training, and what we do after, we can do a lot of things. So focusing on the data that comes out at the moment of the workshop. So remember, I told you that when people are explaining what Toolbox, what their prototype is, how it relates to the main point of the training. That information, I suggest that is written down by the people presenting their prototype. Now, when they write it down, they don't have to read it, but it's good that they write it down even before they present it. When other teams offer feedback, could be in the form of a question, or it could be in the form of perhaps they offer an improvement. All of this also needs to be written down. And then we can use this information in order to create, arrive to some conclusions. So for instance, in the case of the team building exercise, I would expect that some of the conclusions that we arrive from all of this relate to the fact that they work in separate countries, they haven't met face-to-face, plus COVID has made all of this a little bit more difficult, and then management can decide what to do with this knowledge that the person delivering the training, the facilitator, is going to present to them. And again, to the best of my knowledge, this is something that no other framework or tool out there in the market does, which is allow trainers, allow coaches to collect this data and feedback to the organization, so the organization can do something further after the training has been delivered. And this something further is really extremely powerful, because they can change processes, they can change ways of working, they can address issues directly, and they can make change in their organization, change that is going to hopefully, brings, I would say, more revenue or improve the quality of work of the people in the organization and the people who attended the training. So in a nutshell, perhaps not so much a nutshell because I was talking for 30 something minutes, this is how Toolbox for Creativity works. And as I mentioned, Toolbox for Creativity can be used in different settings. And the idea is to figure out how to best apply it to the type of training that you yourself want to deliver. So once again, let me just move this a little bit over here. And I do hope it reads left to right rather than right to left, because at the moment I can see it sort of backwards. Let's see how it looks once I put it on LinkedIn, the recording. So once again, you start with your idea, your training, you know what you want to deliver. You want to improve it by using Toolbox for Creativity. You check our framework, you see how it works. You check information in the community of practice. You book a call with Play, Learn, Develop, me in this case. And then we design a way for you to deliver the training using the prototyping kit, which is the physical part of Toolbox for Creativity. And that's it. So yeah, so this is a poster with a Toolbox for Creativity. So we come to an end. Thank you very much for this. If you have any questions, please let me know. And remember that we are on Kickstarter. I'm going to put the link there at the bottom of this video. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. But if you really like this product and you feel that it can change the way you deliver training, if you feel that this is going to help you deliver better training, and this is going to turn into more revenue for yourself as a person delivering training, please go ahead and make your pledge for any of the packages on Kickstarter. Right now, we have the 50% discount, which is called Super Early Birds. And after the Super Early Birds, there is still an Early Birds, which is 30% discount. After all that, it goes to the base price, which still is extremely accessible compared to other tools in the market. And the reason for this is because I want as many people as possible to use Toolbox for Creativity, and I want as many people as possible to change the way we deliver training. So thank you very much for watching, and until the next time.